eGauge is FCC Class B compliant for commercial, industrial, and residential installations. eGauge is ETL listed and conforms to Canadian CSA, European CE, and Australian RCM standards. The eGauge is manufactured in the USA. The eGauge can be directly wired to systems that do not exceed 277 volts AC between each phase and neutral. If there is greater than 277 volts AC from each individual phase to neutral, or there is no neutral and the phase-to-phase voltage is greater than 277, a step-down transformer will be needed to get the voltages down to an acceptable range between 85 and 277. The eGauge can be used to measure and record whole house energy consumption, renewable energy generation, and the consumption of individual circuits and appliances such as air conditioners, heat pumps, pool pumps, compressors, and home office or kitchen areas. This data can be viewed on any device with a web-enabled browser.
Step is to install the eGauge main unit. The eGauge main unit is generally installed inside or near the main breaker panel. In this photo, you can see the eGauge main unit installed inside the breaker panel in the upper left section. The installer needs to determine whether or not the eGauge main unit, size 7 inches by 3.5 inches by 1.2 inches, can fit into the existing electrical panel. If not, a separate enclosure will be needed. In this photo, you can see the eGauge main unit is installed inside the electrical panel. Here is an example of the eGauge unit mounted outside of the main electrical panel. In this example, the eGauge is mounted in a separate enclosure, in an outdoor situation. And here is another example of an eGauge mounted in its own separate enclosure. The eGauge system uses split-core CTs to monitor the current flow of a given conductor or circuit. In this photo, we see a 100 amp split-core CT. This type of CT is generally used to monitor the total utility demand of a residential home. One CT on each phase of a 240 volt system. The eGauge main unit has 12 CT input slots. As you can see here, the CT plug is being plugged into CT slot 1. Please see CT selection guide for more information. The installer should fill out the installation sheet as the CTs are installed, noting the identity name of the load, the CT amperage, and which phase the CT is connected to, phase A, phase B, or phase C.
The eGauge has 3 voltage inputs. Each voltage input, labeled L1, L2, and L3, reads a single phase of the electrical system being monitored. The L1 input is for home plug communication as well as power and one of the voltage references, so the outlet the home plug adapter is connected to will also have to be on the same phase as the one wired into L1 of the eGauge. Any phase can be wired into L1 of the eGauge, so if a certain outlet must be used for the home plug adapter, that phase can be wired into L1. After installing the home plug, you will want to install the eGauge main unit. The eGauge main unit has 3 voltage inputs and 12 CT inputs. Each phase of the electrical system being monitored will need to be wired into the separate voltage references. The eGauge will need to be wired to a breaker on each of the phases of the electrical system. The ideal situation is for the eGauge to have its own breakers. A single pole 15 amp breaker for each phase is adequate, or a multi-pole 15 amp breaker can be used as well. In cases where there are no available breaker slots for each phase, a splice or insulated lug can be used to wire the eGauge to the phases it will be monitoring. Please make sure the eGauge is wired according to local and national codes. Here is an example of a 3-phase system wired into the eGauge. Phase A of the system is wired into L1, Phase B into L2, and Phase C into L3. You will also see the neutral is wired into the in slot. In situations where there is no neutral, one of the 3 phases will need to be wired into the in slot for the eGauge to function. If one of these phases is grounded, it should be wired into the in slot. Also, please make sure that the phase-to-phase voltage is less than 277 volts AC. In a typical residential split-phase system that has only 2 phases, you will use only 2 of the 3 voltage inputs and the in slot for neutral. After all phases of the electrical system have been successfully wired into the eGauge, you can now begin to install the CTs, short for current transformers. CTs come in many different amperage ratings, inner diameters, and levels of accuracy. Instances that involve non-balanced loads, such as HVAC systems or 3-phase loads, will need a separate CT to monitor each phase of the circuit. This is also the case for electrical systems' main feeds, whether they are 2-phase or 3-phase, as neither instance is a balanced load. When inserting the CT into one of these slots, please be sure the white wire lines up with the white dot and the black wire with the black dot. You can see this below in the picture. As the CTs are being installed, the installer should fill out the installation information sheet, which is located on the back of the owner's manual.